Hello, this is Jamie Mitchell, and we are back with an episode of the Libertarian Censored podcast, going over all the posts in the Libertarian Censored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have The Case for Organ Markets by Lemon Limelight, and they said, a law professor argues for legalizing organ markets because the usual objections do not come to close to overcoming the immense potential gains from both a utilitarian and rights-oriented perspective. The article, The Presumptive Case for Organ Markets, focuses on kidney donations, by far the most significant case. And they link to an article from, looks like, the paper's SRN, summarizing what's at stake. Restrictively legalized kidney sales will prevent 5,000 to 10,000 premature deaths each year in the U.S. and save thousands of patients from enduring painful and debilitating dialysis. Barring patients and their medical providers from purchasing life-saving treatments is a clear infringement on liberty. Likewise, it's a significant constraint on self-ownership and bodily autonomy of potential donors. Does the risk of kidney donation outweigh the benefits of legalization? Not in purely utilitarian terms, because some 1,600 to 3,300 lives would be saved for each donor that dies, at least 1 in 10,000 risk. Also, society today allows people to perform much more dangerous work for pay, e.g. loggers and roofers both face risk of work-related death roughly 150 times and 25 times greater respectively than kidney donors. As for exploiting the poor, the existing ban on organ sales just makes life for many of them worse by closing off opportunities that they would choose only if they were superior to other available options. Paternalistically protecting the poor from a market in human organs only closes the miserable range of options still further. Still, a society dead set on preventing exploitation could limit the right to sell an organ only to those above some level of income deemed sufficient to ensure that exploitation will be avoided. And on moral objections to commodifying the human body, perversely, the only participant in the process forbidden to profit from the commodification of organs is the one who provided the organ in the first place. Recipients, doctors, hospitals, insurers, etc. all gain financially, directly or indirectly from transplants. The sense of altruism must suffice for donors. Lastly, a legalized organ market won't crowd out altruistic donations to reduce total organ availability. For a practical example, look to Iran. The only nation where paying for kidney donations is currently permitted is also the only one that does not have a waiting list for kidneys. Is any of this convincing, or any other objections or arguments missing? If you still don't support the legalized organ market, what would take if anything, change your mind? And I would agree with all that. The thing is, I think if people want to sell all their body, any of their body parts, I think they should be able to. I think people have a right to free market to sell whatever they want to. If they want to sell their kidneys or other organs, I think they should be able to. I think the libertarian perspective is, do whatever you want to do. That doesn't mean I would do the same thing, but you definitely have the right to do that as long as you're not hurting anyone else. It's your body, it's your choice. Then, a lot of Democrats will say that when it comes to abortion, but, they don't extend that to stuff like organ donations or voluntary vaccinations. And I think that's important to, we have to be consistent when it comes to your body, your choice. It's not just for things you like, it's for everything, even if you think it's something that's morally wrong. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have mandatory gun buybacks, red flag laws, and assault weapons bans are in your future. Choose wisely. From Who's Dizzle, and that's a cross post from the firearms subreddit. And it looks like it's some of Camel speaking at the debate. And yeah, I definitely do think she's probably not too good for the Second Amendment. But I don't think Trump is either. He did say to take the guns first, ask questions later, and I think that's important to remember as well. Kamala is at least more open about taking your guns, will give her that, but either or, I think you're screwed. So I would say don't give up your guns, regardless of which party wins the White House. The government is going to be tyrannical regardless of which of them wins, I would say. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have Trump demands ABC be shut down for daring to fact-check his claim of black immigrants stealing and eating pets, among other random bullshit claims from uk.news.yahoo.com by C.H. Warlocks, and that's across from the March Against Nazis subreddit. And yeah, I personally do think ABC was very biased against him. They fact-checked him while never bothering to fact-check Kamala. And I do think, that the media has clearly shown that it's extremely biased in favor of the Democrats. But with that being said, that doesn't mean they should be censored. I'm very against censorship, and even if, the media and its narratives are very good at controlling people, that doesn't mean we should be justified using force to shut them down. I personally think, you could make the case that they've caused too much harm to our society by pushing all these agendas at people, but ultimately, sometimes free speech might have negative consequences, and that's important to remember, and that's my thought on that issue. Then we have A quarter of Republicans think Trump should seize power even if he loses, and the most trusted source of news among Republicans is Trump himself and his campaign. Desperate, and then they add in parentheses, desperate blind loyalist cultists from Amazon.com by CH4Locks, as opposed from CH4Locks, and yeah, ultimately, I think Trump should just kind of go away at this point. I think everyone's kind of tired of him and his circle jerk. But with that being said, if they do want to seize power and they have the force to do so, then they can successfully do it, ultimately that's on them. I personally would rather just go away, but if he's successfully able to seize power, that's just ultimately all power does come from force, and that's important to remember. That's why voting I think is increasingly worthless, because votes aren't really backed by force, rather they're just marks on a piece of paper, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Iowa politics. Judge's ruling keeps names of Libertarian candidates off the ballot for Congress. Original title from KCCI.com by Dr. Who 07. And yeah, I think that's stupid, but ultimately the state is in a position where it can decide things since it has the monopoly on the legal use of force. And ultimately that's why I think, we should probably just stop having all these names on the ballots in general. I would say just make everything a write-in. I still think the Republicans and Democrats would dominate. And yeah, I still think Libertarians would do well, but ultimately it would stop everyone from going through all this bullshit of these ballot access stuff, and that's my thoughts there. Then we have Colorado teen shot in the face after trying to ask permission to take photos at property, police say, from CBSNews.com by CH4Locks, and yeah, ultimately, I don't think people should be shooting each other in the face, but sometimes if you feel threatened and want to justify that, ultimately that's your decision and not mine. Ultimately, the media loves to use stories like this as an excuse to try and disarm people, and you shouldn't be stupid enough to fall for it. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Trump rejects second Harris debate, original title from CNBC.com by Dr. Who 07. And yeah, after that debate, I think Trump, is wise to not debate her again, because it's clearly going to be like 3 against 1, and they're gonna give Harris the questions ahead of time and they'll be extremely pretty much biased for Harris, So yeah, I personally think we should just stop having debates at all, because the media is showing it's inherently biased, and people are better off I would say the politicians are just better off having town halls or addressing your supporters directly rather than going into these, media trap debates. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the Supreme Court's effort to save Trump is already working, and parentheses, absolutely media for kings, presidents, from theatlantic.com by CH4Locks. And yeah, I personally think, I don't know what they mean. Let's see what they said. The conservative justice agreed so many evidence for challenge confusion of the court functionally collaborated in Trump's strategy of delay. And yeah, this is just kind of the Atlantic. The Supreme Court's bad because it's a conservative majority currently. It would be good if it had the same source like the Atlantic, which who supposedly care about the Supreme Court's authoritarianism, wouldn't care if it was a liberal majority, and that's important to remember. They only care when it's the other side who has control, and when it's not their side. And really they're pretty much the same side, I would say, at this point. They both want to enforce all these collectivist values on people, and I don't think that's very libertarian. Then we have Stephen Miller, a close Trump advisor, gets asked about his source in regards to crime rate numbers for Venezuela. He gets cornered and has a mental breakdown from Streamable.com by Donald Key, and that's cross-post from the Interesting as Fuck subreddit. And yeah, I personally don't care for Steve Miller, but this is just kind of another, orange man bad post, and you get kind of tired of him after nearly a decade of him, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have They Always Have to Cheat Right from Ragnarok XG, and that's a tweet that I made, and I tweet, I'm just saying, and I have something for my Libertarian State Signal group. One of them was a headline, I use these new smart earrings to listen to music, they totally surprise me, and then the camera looks like to be wearing the same kind of earrings at a debate, so she could have had a wire in her earrings. That's just another way that they tried to rig the debate, I would say, and why that's how they can get away with it, because it's all just conspiracy theory stuff. But ultimately, I think a lot of conspiracy theories turn out to be more true rather than not true over time, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have color codes, scary shapes and warnings, infantilizing solutions to unhealthy nutrition from Lemon Limelight. And they said from the Washington Post, what warning labels could look on your favorite foods, emphasized. And for your food may soon come with warnings. The Food and Drug Administration plans to propose labeling this fall for the front of food and drink packages to help Americans make healthier choices to address exploiting obesity rates. The labels are supposed to flag products containing high levels of sodium, saturated fat, or added sugars. One potential label would signal health levels of added sugars, saturated fat, or sodium, which the agency defines as having 20% or more of the recommended daily amount per serving. The other features color signaling for how much saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars per serving the food contains. According to the FDA, those proposed labeling schemes fit under existing FDA authority. Naturally, some people aren't happy with existing constraints. Experts say both U.S. versions are weak and confusing compared to the labels used in Chile, which has undertaken one of the most ambitious efforts in the world to fight obesity. The South American country slips back octagons aching to stop signs on foods high in calories, saturated fat, sodium, or sugar. Senator Bernie Sanders says Congress needs to stand up to industry pressure in the United States, much like it did decades ago against tobacco companies where it mandated warning labels on cigarette boxes. Sanders proposed legislation but added rectangular labels warning consumers about ultra-processed foods, non-sugar sweeteners, and sugar-sweetened beverages, as well as octagonal food labels for foods that are high in added sugar, saturated fat, or sodium, or any other nutrient of concern. And personally, I think any government regulation of food is overly authoritarian. I think this sounds well-intentioned. We already have all the nutrition labels on the side that the government forces the companies to put. I don't know why you justify adding anything more to that as well. And I think that's my thoughts on that issue. Buy whatever food you want, but don't force the companies to put any food stuff on the boxes that they don't want to. And I think that's very much the libertarian position. Then we have the woman in this video, Lily Tang Williams, just won her primary for congressional seat in New Hampshire. Can you guarantee her? And it was from the David Hogg video. David Hogg said, David Hogg said, no, he can't guarantee that our government will never be tyrannical. So she said, then the gun control debate is over. And that was a post from Am I Dead Yet I Live? And yeah, I think she seems good. She's running as a Republican. I don't really care for the Republican Party. But that being said, I definitely would hope she'd win her seat. But I think her district's very much a Democratic district. I don't think she's going to win her seat. But yeah, I definitely do think that's a very good, great response. If the government any government can inherently turn tyrannical any second, then that's why that's the biggest example of why citizens should never be disarmed. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And that was a cross post from the Libertarian subreddit, by the way. Well, it wasn't, it can't directly list it on there, but it was. So anyway, after enabling Trump's lunacy for so long, establishment Republicans were there being usurped by crazy right-wing provocateurs from the Hill by Donald Key, and that's cross post from the Lepers Ate My Face subreddit. And yeah, I personally don't care for all the MAGA stuff taking over the Republican Party, but I don't really care for all the woke stuff taking over the Democratic Party either. Both of them are increasingly saying they want to control people through MAGA is more like control people through societal orthodoxy, while woke is more like control people through societal subversion. And neither of those I think are that libertarian, and you have to stand up to bullies who want to force you to do what they want you to do, and that's why we need to be, I would say the libertarian position is to be both anti-MAGA and anti-woke. Then we have shock Muslim voter poll, Stein leading Harris in Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin. Maybe this is why the AOC Pelosi attacks are happening, and that's a tweet from Yashar Ali, and it's posted by Ragnarok XP, and it's crossed from the Green Party subreddit. And yeah, ultimately, I do think the Green Party probably deserves those votes more than Harris. The Democrat excuses, but if Trump gets elected, it will be much worse. But, how can you get much worse than literal genocide? And, yeah, the Democrats will throw out their same excuses, the Green Party's a Russian psyop, yada, yada, yada. But, ultimately, it's just because they feel entitled to every position in government. And that's my thoughts there. Ultimately, I think if the Democrats had their way, they'd be the only legal party. All the other parties and independents would be illegal because they would be deemed a threat to democracy, and that's why you can't let the Democrats bully you into thinking, oh, voting for a third party is bad because it might give Trump power again. That's just an excuse to bully people to support their candidate. Then we have on the lighter side of things, and that's a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, but instead instead of a snake, it's a cat, and it says "Don't snack on me," and I think that's very funny. I saw another one where another meme where it was Garfield gets adopted by Haitians, and it was a Garfield panel, but John was Haitian, he was black, and he was eating Garfield, and that's another funny thing I found from this. Some people might say, "Oh, it's not happening," but they always say, "Oh, the Democrats always say to share your lived experience," and then the Springfield, Ohio people say, "Oh, we've seen people eating cats and dogs," and then the Democrats go, "Oh, not like that." And it just goes to show you how people are hypocritical whenever you say something that goes against the narrative. Then we have why we shouldn't criminalize hate speech from Zesty Close Look 4376, and that's crosswords from the Youth Revolt subreddit. And yes, I agree with that very much. Ultimately, I don't think hate speech is even a thing. I think speech can be hateful, but with that being said, I don't think there should be any legally defined category known as hate speech. And so that's my thoughts there. Then we have Prude Home, What is Property, from the Then and Now channel on YouTube. And that's posted from Hero of Country. And ultimately, I would say property is whatever people want to make it to be. But, I think you have the right to do whatever you want with your own property. But I do think, we need to stand against corporate authoritarianism as well. And if a restaurant doesn't want to serve people because of the color of the skin, I think that's corporate authoritarianism, and we shouldn't support companies like that. But I think they absolutely should have the legal right to do it. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have J.D. Vance, Americans Without Charge and Base Consequences, from VC, and that's a crosswords from the Public Freakout subreddit. And yeah, ultimately, I don't care how the Republicans are trying to bully people into having children if they don't want to. But the Democrats try and bully people as well, and that does, and the Redditors don't really seem to care about when the Democrats bully people. Then we have the Free Market at Work from Ragnarok HD, and that's a tweet from Ellen Dave, and they tweeted, "Rental property 1 pays for our vacations," and they crossed out rental property 1 and wrote "struggling single mother." Then they wrote rental property 2 pays for our mortgage, crossed out rental property 2 or steal personal fixed income, rental property 3. Cross that out, right? Starting garage, you can pay for our groceries, yada yada yada. And this is just a landlord's bad post. Ultimately, I don't really care too much for landlords as a business. But that being said, ultimately, they do pay for stuff like the renovations of houses and utilities and all that. And I think if people do want to be landlords and have the force to maintain that, I think they should be able to. But that being said, I personally wouldn't want to live under a landlord. I prefer owning my own property, and even then, even if you do own your own property, the government can still use force to own you for any reason whatsoever if it deems it necessary. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And yeah, so ultimately, do whatever you want, and yeah, just stand up to authoritarianism when you see it. And I think I'm going to wrap it up there, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.